Hey everybody, welcome to episode 72 of the Askdap show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, we talk about the performance benefits to removing your AC system, clunking noises from drive to neutral and back, and oil lights on Mark 7s. Okay, so before we get into the questions, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody in the community. Just over the weekend was our Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. We had a ton of orders and a ton of support from the community. So I just wanted to reach out and say thank you so much for everybody who purchased with us. The support means a ton to us and allows us to continue to do what we do here, and hopefully benefits you guys in bringing you value and answering questions and all the DIYs. So again, thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me. Let's get into the questions.
Does the AC system actually take that much weight? Wouldn't it be helpful on a front-wheel drive car though, since the weight is in the front?
So this question was asked on our Project Mark 5 build. I can't recall which video, but essentially, if you're not familiar, I'll link to the playlist here where you can check that out. And basically what we're doing is, Max, one of the guys who works here, we're actually building his Mark 5 big turbo car, bottom end, limited slip differential, all that stuff. And so the AC system is being removed on that car, or is removed on that car. And the question is, does removing the AC system, does it save that much weight, and does it have benefits, or does it detract? Because obviously on a front wheel drive car, the drive wheels are there. So the theory would be, I guess the idea behind it, the question is, the more weight you have in the front, the better, because it's better for traction. So yes, theoretically, the more weight you have in the front, the better for traction. A couple things. One, on a front-wheel drive car, you're always going to struggle with that issue, just the dynamics of, as soon as you launch a car, the weight transfers to the back. So you're immediately transferring the weight off the front wheels, no matter how much weight you have on there. So that itself is just a natural issue with front-wheel drive vehicles. So adding more weight is not necessarily going to be the answer for that. There are different ways that people combat that with stiffer rear suspensions and a lot of other different things. If you're building a drag car, a lot of people, you would drop the front air pressure to allow the most traction you can on the front, and then raise the rear pressure for less drag, and also stiffer to prevent as much squat as possible in the rear when you launch. But essentially, weight, it does remove a lot of weight, but I don't think that that's going to be the primary driving factor behind why Max wants to remove the AC. It does remove weight, but also when you're going down the road of a build like this, you're going to have to do custom piping and stuff like that. And the less things in the way, the easier it is for that. It also does allow more airflow, having less things in the front of the car. So you have the radiator, and then you have the intercooler and the condenser. And so removing the condenser allows more air to flow through that, which is obviously better for overall performance. So there's a lot of multi-layers things to that, but it's not as simple as just one thing. And, frankly, you have more rotating mass on AC cars, so that's a drag on the engine. And since most current model VWs don't use a clutch type system, they actually use a variable vane type AC compressor, where essentially old AC systems use a clutch that would disengage from the compressor of the air conditioning system. Now they have a compressor that has variable rates of flow, so it kind of disengages internally, but it will still probably drag a little bit more, and it's just unnecessary rotating mass in the belt system, as well as just unnecessary weight if you're not intending on using it. So that's pretty much the gist of why the AC system is being removed.
Mike via YouTube says, "It's about to get real cold up here in Massachusetts, and I just ran out of windshield washer fluid. The Mark 7 owner's manual warns against mixing VW washer fluid with non-VW fluid. I've also heard stories of sensors being destroyed by using orange or green winter washer fluid, particularly Rain-X, and warranty claims being denied because of it. When I went to the dealership, they said they don't sell any VW fluid by the bottle, but could top me off in the service department if I waited. Not only is it almost impossible to find any VW washer fluid online, what I have found, it's only recommended for the summer. I was thinking of buying the summer VW washer fluid and adding a cup or two of isopropyl alcohol to keep it from freezing, unless you have a better idea of safe and trusted winter washer fluid brands for VW. Thanks again, Mike.
Mike, so a couple things. One, I'm not super familiar with any warranty issues being denied on that type of scenario, but I definitely could see it happening. If you use a fluid mixed with VW and Audi fluid and it doesn't work well in the system, and especially if it's a different color, it ends up like tarnishing the sensor and then obviously causes it to prematurely fail. Then for sure, if it went bad, it would not be covered under warranty when you're not using the factory fluid. Generally, those sensors don't go bad from my experience. So if it was to fail and they found, and it's commonly known to fail when you're using that type of fluid, then yeah, it's very likely that that's actually a legitimate reason to not cover under warranty. In regards to washer fluid, so a lot of dealerships wouldn't carry washer fluid because, again, they buy it in like drums and they buy it for service work, and so they don't carry the individual bottles like this one. This is one that we sell. I'll put a link to it here as well as in the description below where you can check out this factory fluid. This is a 1 quart bottle, and it's a concentrate, and they talk about mixing with water. This particular setup, you mentioned winter summer mixes. This one actually says if you mix with 1.5 bottles of water, meaning dump this in and dump in 1.5 of these of water, the protection from freezing is -18 degrees Fahrenheit. If you did it with 2, it's -4 degrees. So I don't know many places in the US that are going to get below -18 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if even in Alaska, if it gets that cold. So this is probably a good option for you. Other than that, I'm sure some dealerships do carry this. It probably depends on your area. Cataloging is tough when it comes to windshield washer fluid because a lot of times dealers don't know where to find this stuff, which is why they're not aware of it, or it's not easy for them to find. And another reason why they just don't often carry stuff like this, because people don't go to dealerships to buy stuff like this as a general rule. So really what it boils down to is the person you talked to didn't know what they were talking about. But this is a fluid that is an option for you. And if you wanted to go down the road of other options, seeing your local dealer is one option. And then also what you mentioned definitely could work. I don't know. For me, I don't know what the proper mix would be with putting the alcohol in relative to what you call a summer washer solvent. And the other thing is you don't know how that's going to mix with the washer solvent. It could deteriorate it in some way. I'm not a chemist. I don't pretend to be. So I just stick with what I know works and then go from there.
Jose says, my Mark 7 check engine light came on in red for a split second while at a stoplight and then went away. I could not find anything on the infotainment center.
Okay, Jose. Couple things, oil lights. So anytime an oil light comes on for any reason, any check oil light or oil level low or oil pressure, anything relating to anything around that stuff, if it flashes, you should always 100% of the time be concerned. That is a sign that there is something bad going on and it should be addressed immediately. Now, if it flashed for a second, then went off, there's a couple things that I have thoughts on. Most people default to hoping that they have a bad oil level sensor or oil quality sensor or whatever. It's going to vary depending on model as far as what they have in them, but that's generally not the case. It's not super common for any of those sensors to go bad. I would default into thinking that you either are low on oil or you have an oil pressure problem. Probably just being low on oil. So when you have any light come on like that, first thing you should do is turn off your car, check your oil. When you're checking your infotainment, I'm not sure what you're looking for, maybe faults of some kind, but first thing you do is turn off the car, check the oil, determine what your oil level is. If you know it's good, then you can probably continue to drive. And if the light continues to flash in any way, you need to make sure you stop your vehicle, because if you have a low oil pressure problem and your oil light's flashing, you could nuke your engine if you continue to drive. Even if there's plenty of oil in the engine, if the oil pump is not functioning properly and it's not pumping oil through the system, essentially it's the same as having no oil in the car, and that's really bad news. So always check it. That's the way to go. Probably, my guess would be it's just a little bit low and needs to be topped up. Usually oil lights don't come on until you're at least significantly low. So you're probably, I would think, at least a quart low in that circumstance. So check your oil, make sure you have oil in the car, and that should solve your issue. If you don't, obviously you can always bring it to the dealer. They're probably not going to, they're not going to do anything when you have this happen, but at least you'll have a record of it having happened. So if anything happens down the road, you'll have a record of it actually being an issue. So documenting stuff that could potentially be warranty claims in the future is something that's kind of important, just so that there's kind of a pattern history to be aware of for that particular vehicle.
Gabriel via YouTube says, hello, maybe you can help me out. 2005 Jetta 2.5, when I put it from P to D, clunk N to D, clunk sometimes R, too, but not often. All the mounts are new, and also did a valve body repair solenoids kit and doesn't show any codes. Anything to do with the speed sensor or any of the sensors in the transmission solenoid in 88 or 89?
All right, Gabriel. So valve bodies on those specific transmissions, on really that generation of car, they had some issues, so I understand why it would have been replaced. Let's tackle a couple things. So valve bodies, for anybody who's not familiar, basically controls, it has all the solenoids and controls all the oil flow in an automatic transmission. Remember, this is not a DSG, to the clutch packs to engage each gear. Most times when valve bodies fail, what they do is cause like weird shifting issues and less of that type of scenario of what you're describing. So I would say it's probably not related to a valve body. Replacing all the engine mounts is a decent option because that could very likely be related to it, but the fact that they're new, assuming you use quality parts, but even if you use quality parts, you're still, the fact that you replaced them and nothing changed is obviously a sign that they're not related to the engine mount. So the next thing, answering your questions about solenoids and sensors. So sensors are pretty much almost never going to cause an issue like this. What you're describing sounds like it's a mechanical problem. And solenoids are actually pretty much, as far as I can recall, that valve body, and I'll link to that valve body. It's pretty much the same valve body on all Mark V cars. Again, not DSG. I'll link to it in the description below. But they are not going to actually have any separate valve solenoids, as far as I recall. So that all the solenoids are actually included on that valve body itself. Again, if my memory serves me correctly. So definitely not going to be related to solenoid. So what I believe is one of a couple things. Sounds like it's a mechanical problem. So what was a problem on some of those cars is there was a clunking issue with the subframe shifting. So there's a kit made by T-Roll Sport, which we carry. It's called a dead set kit. It is something that you actually puts collars into the bolts of the subframe to prevent it from moving. Subframe bolts actually have a little bit of wiggle room in them, and this is intended for alignment purposes. So you can shift the subframe side to side for alignment. The problem is obviously some of the bolts had a problem, and there was a TSB on those cars where you would put this shim and a bolt. I'll link to both of those in the description below as well. And you would update that to prevent the subframe from shifting. So what you're describing, very likely, if it may be bad enough to where the subframe is actually shifting and actually knocking, and that's what you're hearing when it's banging between gears from neutral, everything kind of shifts and then the subframe knocks. So it's kind of hard to tell based on what you're describing, but that's my first assumption with what you're having an issue with. It could be related to, complicated internal transmission stuff that's causing that, which would be either related to different fluid paths in the transmission or mechanical stuff in the automatic transmission itself. But the fact that it happens in multiple places makes me think it's probably that subframe, and that's definitely where I would start. So you can definitely start by checking to snug the bolts up in the subframe and see if they have the ability to be tightened. If they do, that's probably your best bet, and you should go ahead and either buy a dead set kit or replace it with those TSB bolts, and go from there. Thank you so much for watching episode 72 of the Askdap Show, where we answer your Volkswagen Audi questions. If you have any questions or comments about the questions answered in this show, be sure to leave in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.